Welcome to the IDP Plus Advice Show. Today we're going to continue talking about IDP Plus, IDP news and notes from preseason week 2 now. As well, we're going to finish our IDP division by division recommendations. And with that, let's get started. All right, welcome everyone. Glad to be with you here again this week. I'm your host, Ricky Rodriguez. You can find me at RickyRod66, joined by the excellent IDP guru, Sean Teague, who you can find at Sean8386. Sean has been playing IDP longer than some of my kids' ages, so that's how long he's been playing. All right, we are thrilled to be with you, and we're going to be covering, as I mentioned earlier, IDP news and notes from preseason week 2, and boy, do we have a lot for you to cover. In addition, we are going to finish our series going at our division by division recommendations in terms of who we think the MVPs are, who the breakout stars are going to be, who the busts are going to be, who's going to return to relevance, etc. We'll be talking about that as well, finishing with the NFC South and the NFC West. Of course, if you missed any of our previous episodes, you can go to the same IDP Plus channel. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Or you can also go to Spotify as well and re-listen to them. We're getting a lot of good comments and questions. I'll be shouting out a little bit later in the show several people that engaged with us on the IDP Plus YouTube channel, asking questions and giving comments. So we'll shout out them a little bit later as well. So leave your comments and questions on that page. But Sean, how you doing? Hope you're doing okay.
Doing good, man. It's hot down here. And I'm not just talking about all these camp battles going on. It's 110 down here.
Wow, y'all, and Sean's in Tennessee. For those that aren't aware, I'm in Austin, Texas, where we only got up to 102 today. Now it felt like 110 with the humidity and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So right there with you, man. So it's hot across the nation, but we won't get into a global warming discussion. We're going to talk about IDP news and notes. Now I got to tell everybody, with the help of the NFL Network, who shows every recorded preseason game, and DVR technology capability, I watched every important series from every preseason game. So I was tracking who was in, who was out, and you pick up on that and hear about it. There was a couple of nuggets I also picked up from PFF, so I want to do a quick shout out for PFF as well. So we're going to start with linebackers, though. And with Patriots, kind of starting with the AFC East, and where there's a few notes to talk about. First, Robert Spillane and Christian Ellis once again started. They played 2 series, and then they were both done. Robert Spillane's wearing number 14 instead of 41. It kind of threw me off a little bit. So just as FYI, if you're watching the Patriots and wondering who's number 14, it's Robert Spillane now. When they came out, Jack Gibbons and Cam Riley went in. Marte Mapu was injured, so didn't play. So it looks like all systems are go for Robert Spillane and Christian Ellis. We talked about Ellis last week, and our thoughts as roughly a linebacker 4 kind of thing. I don't think there's any change there, huh, Sean?
No. I think it's been that duo the entire time. I know some people were thinking Jack Gibbons early on, but I felt he was just a Joe Bocci or something that kind of followed over just to kind of fill in with the system until we got the actual breakdown with Christian Ellis taking over that second spot, which he pretty much earned last year. So yeah, this one was business as usual for the Patriots.
All right. And so moving to the Dolphins real quick. So both Tyrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks both sat out, didn't dress, didn't play. And it was KJ Britt and Willie Gay. Now, on this show, I've talked about all the positive news I've been hearing about Willie Gay from all the beat writers, and I really hadn't heard anything about Tyrell Dodson. It's always Gay made a play, Gay made a play, Gay made a play, but nothing from Tyrell Dodson. But it looks like with Dodson and Brooks sitting out, it's going to be Dodson and Brooks starting. Dodson's supposed to wear the green dot. Happy that is the case. I'm still stashing Willie Gay in deep leagues just in case, particularly if I have Dodson almost as a handcuff. But anyway, some great news for Dodson there. All right, now we're going to move to the Ravens. Roquan Smith sat out. Trenton Simpson and Teddy Buchanan were the two that started. Buchanan being the 4th-round draft pick from California. Buchanan wore the green dot, which was interesting. That's the second week in a row that happened. They played the first 3 series because the Cowboys in the first 2 series only played a total of 6 snaps. Their offense was terrible with Joe Milton. Okay, but we're not going to talk about offense. What was interesting, on the 4th series, Jake Hummel came in, Trent Simpson went out, Teddy Buchanan stayed in. Sean, are you feeling any better about Trenton Simpson, or at least better than I've been feeling? Because I've been pretty disparaging about Trent Simpson.
Yeah, I don't know what to think, to be honest with you. I felt like he's been the number 2 guy all along, and I am assuming Teddy Buchanan is going to be the direct backup to Roquan. That's my guess at this moment. This could turn into a 2-3 man rotation that may be a problem. So if I'm drafting Trenton Simpson, it's late. He
Absolutely.
round dart throws a linebacker.
Exactly. And being prepared to, maybe if you have a taxi squad, depending on your league, you stash Teddy Buchanan potentially. Because I still think that even though he's been the green dot like backup to Roquan, that if Simpson goes out, it would be more likely Buchanan goes in and not Jake Hummel. You
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah. I think Hummel's the odd man out on this unless something drastic happens with the other 2.
Okay. All right. Moving over to the Steelers. Patrick Queen sat out. Peyton Wilson wore the green dot, and he and Cole Holcomb started at linebacker. I've got to say, Cole Holcomb didn't, it's been a year and a half since his injury, but he really looked very mobile on the field. Now, remember, he was a 5th-round pick, so we got to keep that in perspective. But he has been productive for IDP when he has been healthy. So it's just something to keep an eye on Holcomb. Um, Now, Peyton Wilson, who's known for his pass defense, he got beat by Cade Otton on a pass, of which, unfortunately, well, I should say unfortunately, but Otton just dropped the pass, and he got burned on the Bucky Irving TD on a pass as well in terms of watching the game. But he played 3 drives, and then he was out, he being Peyton Wilson. Holcomb stayed in and was joined by Malik Harrison. So it looks like it's Queen, Wilson, Holcomb, and Harrison. Looks like the order at this point in time. I made the argument that Peyton Wilson, last week I talked about the fact that I really thought he might play close to 100% of the snaps. One of our listeners / watchers actually commented in the comments that he would be surprised if Wilson didn't play 100% of the snaps as well, or close to it. He was kind of agreeing with me. Sean, have you joined us on that side of the fence, or you're not there yet?
I'm still skeptical, but I will say, for whatever reason, Peyton Wilson is going very unnoticed in my IDP only drafts, where we're starting up to 5 linebackers at a time. I'm getting him actually really late, so I don't know if he's just going overlooked in general because of the old consensus of there's only one full-time linebacker for the Steelers, or or if they just don't believe in him. But so I have been picking him up later. So he's like my LB 4 or 5, sometimes 6. Some of these are deep. But I'm starting to come around to at least the idea that he is going to be on the field a lot more, and not so much as a rotation with Holcomb.
Yep. So I think it is the former, that I think people are biased by the history of the Steelers in their approach and so forth, and it's very understandable.
Hmm.
But Peyton Wilson is a little bit different animal than some of the run thumpers they've had in there as a number 2 linebacker. So um, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm still betting on the 100%. If you're getting as a 4, 5, or 6, I think you're getting a real steal. I think that's how that's working out.
Yeah, and if he doesn't pan out, if I treat it like an injury, and I could drop him for somebody else that just comes out of nowhere. If
Particularly
I'm only
picking him that late.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When you're getting a guy that late, you treat him like, oh, he's injured. I'll just go pick up somebody else. It's not like I lost Roquan Smith and as my first linebacker. Where I'm looking at 4 or 5 here, so great value,
Yeah.
low risk.
Now moving to the Bengals, Logan Wilson and Demetrius Knight started and played 2 series. Oren Burks was the number 3 linebacker during that time. And what was interesting in terms of watching the plays, On Oren Burks was playing on the edge on one side on the first run where Deebo Samuel went around the edge, and Oren Burks got blown out of the play, and off went Deebo Samuel. On the next two running plays, I was specifically was watching for Demetrius Knight, and he got blown up on both of the running plays. Now on the fourth play when Jane Daniels ran it in and scored, Demetrius Knight I was watching him. He had great coverage on the running back out of the backfield. Was man to man. He followed him into the end zone. Of course, that was near the flag, and Daniels took it up the middle, but he did what he was supposed to. On the second series, I went back and watched that as well, and he got blown up pretty bad again on the Ja'Cory Cross Merritt. He should have been the guy filling that hole, and he just got blown up. And you know,
Hmm.
Ricky Rodriguez at age, all right, 61, I think
Oh.
I could have run through that hole. Okay.
Oh man.
I maybe not gotten as far as Bill did, Bill Cross Merritt, but I could have made it through that hole. So anyway, great that he was on the field, but very concerning that he got blown up that bad. Where have you been seeing Demetrius Knight being drafted?
uh, he's actually been going around Peyton Wilson in some of these, more on the backside of Peyton Wilson. But I'm curious as to if this is just him being, rookie, bit of inexperienced here, or if we're just looking at some maybe bad defensive tackle play where they're not keeping their linebackers clean to make some of these plays. So but that may be something that is a factor here for Knight. I'm not taking him high at all, just because he is a rookie, and I have a hard time trusting rookies on defense. So if I can get him in that LB 4 or 5 range, with Peyton Wilson, it's low risk.
Yeah, I have to admit. So I was seeing him as a 4 to 5.
Mhm.
But after watching that, I got really concerned. So much so that I'm wondering that do they put Oren Burks in there to give him more of a chance to kind of develop and learn a little bit more. That's how bad it appeared to be. Now, look, I'm not going to claim to be Vic Fangio in terms of my knowledge of defense, kind of thing. So I want to be careful here. But just based on what I watched, that made me very nervous. And to your point about the defensive line, yes, the Bengals need Trey Hendrickson back. But to your point on defensive tackles, Aaron Donald's not showing up there anytime soon.
Let's
They don't have
see.
DeForest Buckner on their team,
Right.
so um, this could be
BJ
rough.
Hill,
Yep.
and I don't know who it may be a competition for the other one, between, I think, TJ Slayton and Chris Jenkins Jr. Now, Chris Jenkins Sr. was a beast, so if he can turn into his dad, then Demetrius Knight's going to be just fine. But we've talked in the past how we thought maybe Oren Burks would kind of start the season, or at least I've mentioned that I thought Oren Burks would kind of start and Demetrius Knight would take over. Looks like they're willing to let him go out there and fail and learn, which is good. That'll help him develop, firsthand, instead of just watching film the whole time or watching plays from the side. So uh, I don't think I would slide Knight down too much here in my rankings.
Okay. All right. So, and we've talked on a past show how it's always a bit of a gamble to grab rookies on the defense side of the ball. Um, Oftentimes they don't get more than 750 snaps in a year. We just talked about the concerns about Demetrius Knight staying in that same division with the Browns and Carson Schlesinger. We talked about him previously as a low end one, high end two linebacker. He is a rookie. The feedback has been good. Is this talk about Knight? Is that having you lowering your thoughts about Schlesinger, and maybe we had him talking about him a little bit too high? Or are you okay with him where we were talking about him previously?
Now, Schlesinger's got a lot better defensive line in front of him, uh, even with rookie Mason Graham there. Miles Garrett and just about anybody else is probably better than the Bengals. So Trey Hendrickson included. Uh, so I'm not as worried. There's nobody to really push Schlesinger out of the way either. Where Devin Bush is going to be the sidekick here. Jerome Baker is approaching washed. category here. Diabate.
He got released by the Titans.
Yeah,
That's
I remember that was.
last year
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
middle of the
So
year.
yeah, his younger seasons were are way past him. So yeah, Baker doesn't scare me. Diabate doesn't worry me. He's just kind of a guy out there. There's nobody else to really push. Where Oren Burks is again a special teamer and a solid backup. I could see him mixing in more where the Browns have almost nobody else. It's Grant Delpit's probably going to get a good share just by being up at the box safety there to help out. But no, I feel fine with Schwesiger going where he's going.
All right. Okay, so let's switch division now. We're going to go to the AFC South and talk about the Houston Texans. And this is where some of this stuff started getting really interesting. We have we're going to talk about several of these kind of play mixture things that were happening. What I will tell our audience first is Aziz Al-Shahir appears to be the clear number one. Okay, so that's not in dispute at this point in time from the way he's been deployed in the first couple preseason games and the training camp reports and all. Henry To'oTo'o was the number two starting next to him. However, in watching the play-by-play, when it became a passing situation, To'oTo'o came out and EJ Speed went in. So it was very interesting. So when there's three linebackers on the field, EJ Speed was the number three when it was like obvious run situations, a couple of tight ends, whatever it might have been. So EJ Speed was on number three. If it was a situation where it's run down with not maybe two tight ends and maybe three wide or something like that, then Speed was off. But it looks like To'oTo'o is the number two for run and number three for pass. Speed is the number three for run, but the number two for pass defense at the linebacker position as of now. And that doesn't include Christian Harris, who I mentioned last week, during his first practice back, got thrown in and mixed in with the first team, although Christian Harris didn't play this past week. So I wanted to kind of set that stage for the audience in terms of that number two linebacker position might be a hodgepodge of stuff, folks. And so Al-Shahir might be the only one worth picking at this point in time, unless you can get these other guys really late. So, Sean, do you think the way that rotation was in week two is how things are going to play out? Or you think something else is going to happen here and that Christian Harris leapfrogs both To'oTo'o and Speed?
Ideally, Christian Harris would leapfrog both of them, but with the amount of injuries he's picking up the last couple of years, even just even if it's a game or two, they're nagging. There's a lot of them, so I have no confidence in him either. I'm sticking with what I've been saying all off season, where I'm avoiding this linebacker crew altogether. If you have to take one, it's Aziz Al-Shahir. The rest of this is a mess. It's probably Harris when he's healthy, and then when he's not, then it's looking like a rotation between To'oTo'o and EJ Speed, and that's nobody's winning that in fantasy. So Aziz, if you got to have one, and if Harris can somehow stay healthy long enough, he's a good plug and play for those couple weeks.
Yeah. I sometimes like to take these IDP positions and kind of compare them to offense, particularly for people that are new to IDP. And a rotation at the second linebacker position in particular. Think about if you had a running back situation where, you had two running backs, both of which got 8 or 9 carries for, 32, 36, 40 yards, and maybe they get one catch each for like 8 yards or whatever. That's not exactly going to be productive. That's not going to give you a top 36 running back week in most cases. Same
Yeah,
thing happens at linebacker, folks. Same exact thing when they're rotating like that. So just keep that in mind. So that's the Texan situation. Now, one of the most biggest things, and we've been preaching about he's a steal, he's a cheat code. His name is James Williams. I believe it's James Williams the fourth, I think, to be more precise, with the Tennessee Titans. It's been Barton and Williams, Barton and Williams, Barton and Williams until roughly last Tuesday or Wednesday. All of a sudden, Cedric Gray in practice is with the starters next to Barton. And then preseason game number 2 happens, and Cedric Gray is starting next to Barton. And when Barton exits, then James Williams comes in. And when James Gray exits, late in the first half, James Williams continues to play into the second half. So I know, in fact, back to the YouTube Plus channel and this IDP Advice show, and people putting comments. We had people asking, should they drop so and so for James Williams? Now they would. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I do remember. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Do it. But now, is it drop James Williams for Cedric Gray, or do you think this is just they're giving Gray a look-see and all? As a
I,
as a side note, before you answer that question, Cedric Gray, he rushed, he blitzed through the middle. He blew up, I believe it was Nathan Wright, the fourth string running back for the Falcons. He just blew him up, ran over him, and got the quarterback sacked. Later in the game, he also got an interception, although the interception was thrown directly to him, like he was the wide receiver, the tight end. But it was you might not have seen the stats because it was overturned because there was offsetting penalties. So couple of splash plays to catch the coach's attention. Now, Sean, I ask you that question. Cedric Gray, are you believing where this appears to be leading, that it's Cedric Gray over James Williams?
I'm nervous for all my James Williams share, and I have quite a few. Um, I don't know what to say here. I, I'm still leaning towards it being
Come
James
on, make a
Williams.
call, Sean. Don't be
I'm
a wimp.
yeah,
Tell our
so I'm
audience what you think, by gosh.
working on it. I'm working. I'm processing. I still think it's James Williams, and this was just a way to see what Cedric Gray could do. If you believe in PFF, I believe a lot of his numbers were worse than James Williams, even this past week. But again, you say he blew up, the fourth string running back or whatever. So that's a fourth string running back. Um, Boy, they're not making it easy for us because all this time I've been hearing Williams, 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 and then all of a
Exactly.
sudden they were like, "Hey, let's throw some Gray in there and create an issue for fantasy guys." I'm still
So
sticking with Williams,
interesting.
and with
So if
his designation on sleeper as a defensive back, you're not really out anything if he doesn't pan out. You take him late; he's a DB. You don't really lose anything. You just replace him with the next flavor of the week at defensive back. Now, if he's on MFL, where I have quite a few of him, I took him as an LB4, LB5. So again, I'm not out a lot.
so
If
so I
he
think
does,
our advice to the audience would be maybe don't draft him any higher than LB5 at this point in
yeah,
time.
and even if you think Cedric Gray is the guy, don't take him any higher than LB4 or 5. Probably 5 is probably the safest
Yep.
number here. And if it's a shallow league, I probably leave them both off for now. And once somebody is a clear cut winner in this thing, you just pick them up off waivers whenever you need them, if you even need them, depending on who's out there.
So we'll continue to monitor the practice reports. We'll continue to monitor some of the tweets from. Is it X still a tweet? When it was
I
Twitter as a tweet, is it X still? Is it Xy? I don't know.
I think
But
it's a
anyway,
post.
a post. Okay, it's
I
just
think
called
it's what
a
it's
post.
called. I like
It's
tweets
technically,
better. Sounds better.
yeah, yeah. So whatever the beat reporters do for the Titans, we'll be watching those too, and of course we'll be watching what happens in Week 3 to see what happens. You know what's going to happen? They're going to sit Barton and start them both, and they're going to take them out both at the same time. That's what
yeah,
that's what's gonna they're going to do just to screw our fantasy football teams
yeah. All
and leave us
those
guessing.
LB3 Cody Barton shares are worthless now.
No, I'm just saying they're going to rest Barton and they can start the other two
Oh
and just
yeah,
make it impossible for us to know. I still think Barton's the one.
I got you.
All righty. Moving to the Colts. And Zaire Franklin, at least he was in pads. I noticed that he was in pads on the sidelines with his number 44, which was good to see, but he did not play. Jalen Carleys, who earlier this offseason was going to be the number 2 linebacker next to him, he once again did not play due to an ankle injury that he sustained. Joe Bacci and Cam McCrone started. Bacci started with the green dot, which is the Franklin role, obviously. Now, uh, in terms of McGrone and Bocce, a couple of interesting things happened. One, as a side note, when McGrone made a tackle and then he tapped himself out, tapped himself on the helmet, and Austin Ajake came in as the next linebacker. So for those of you that have Olubi and thinking he's like probably number 6 linebacker at a minimum, he went out. I mean, drop him, he's done. Okay. There was a 3rd and long situation when McGrone had gone back into the game. It was a 3rd and 10. I actually wrote it down, or I typed it up now. And McGrone came out, and Hunter Wohler moved from safety down to the linebacker position, which is interesting. And when the coach drafted Wohler, they drafted him as a linebacker, but he was playing safety because Nick Cross was injured and didn't play. There was a 3rd and 14 later. Same thing happened. Wohler moved down to the linebacker position. Now, unfortunately, Hunter Wohler hurt his foot during that game, and I haven't heard all the details of it, but he got put on IR, so he is out for the year. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about with you, Sean, for our audience. The first one is, do you think that Nick Cross, who is more of a box safety, and he's had great success in that kind of role last year, do you think that when Franklin's back, on long passing situation, does Cross move to that second linebacker role? Like you saw Wohler, like you saw happening with Wohler?
I'm going to say no because they'll have the extra player of Zaire Franklin being on the field. Right now, they're down Franklin and Carles, so they got 2 real linebackers that they were trying to start right now, and McGrone and Bocce. So you would have that extra body back. So I think Wohler was just kind of the fill in. Let's see what we can do. He was a was a linebacker, or he's that tweener role. So let's go see what he can do. And then he got hurt. So I don't think that's going to be the case too much. Also because of the secondary itself being completely broken down with injuries. The Colts are probably the most injured defense right now, and we're not even out of the preseason yet. To the point where, go ahead.
And I agree with everything you were just saying because of the injuries in the secondary and the lack of depth they're going to have. I think Cross does not do that. That's number one. The other reason I think that is when Wohler was announced as a draft pick, he was actually announced as a linebacker, even though he played safety in college. So they went in with this plan of using him as a hybrid safety or linebacker when he was going to be on the field. But with him injured, I just don't think they do that Cross. So that leads to question number 2 then, which is, who's going to start next to Zaire Franklin in week 1? Bocce had that green dot, which would apply behind Franklin, and McGrone was more the will. Mm-hmm. But Bocce knows the Lou Anarumo system from when they were with Cincinnati together, and now, of course, they're both with the Colts. So is it Bocce? Is it Cam McGrone? Or does Jalen Carles have a miracle recovery and do well in these next couple of weeks of practice? And as expected, he is now the starter. Sean, make your call.
Judging by all the drafts I'm in, everybody says Carles. I say it's Bocce.
I'm with you too. I think right now it's Bocce. I think Carles is just, and we talked about it in previous shows, he missed basically all of the mini camps and OTAs and all that kind of stuff. He's missed most of training camp with injuries. And so with that situation, I just don't see how they can, in a totally new system, I don't think how he can get on the field. Maybe he gets on later in the year. I just don't see it happening in the short term. Yeah, and I'm with you. I think it's Bocce that starts as well.
Yeah. And I think you're right with him being coming over with Lou Anarumo. That gives him the edge, just knowing the system itself. And we've seen him in Cincinnati as a waiver wire pickup in the past, so we know he can produce for us.
All right. So there's some more tricky stuff that people haven't picked up on, and let's continue with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm watching the Jags against the Saints, and so I watched the game, and then I went back to watch for the defensive alignments and all, because I love my Saints, even though, God, it was horrible. Early in the year, the game finished as a tie, but if the Jags left their first string in, that would have been like 56-10 or something. It was bad. I digress about my Saints. It'll be interesting to see who the Saints draft as the number 1 quarterback next year. But, with the first pick of the draft, I think they'll be even worse than the Browns. It's bad. If you okay,
Oof.
enough of that.
Yeah, let's get positive. Let's get positive here.
The Jags. Well, this isn't necessarily positive for
I
a
know.
linebacker that a lot of people like. Foye Oluokun was the clear number one for the Jags. Devin Lloyd started next to him, so I jot that down on my little piece of paper, as I'm
Yeah.
taking notes. Ventrell Miller was the number three on that first drive. On the second drive, I don't see Lloyd on the field. It is Foye Oluokun and Ventrell Miller. On the third drive, Foye was done, and it was Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma. No Ventrell Miller. On the fourth drive, that's when Jack Kaiser and others finally came in. So for those of y'all thinking Jack Kaiser might sneak in there, looks like he's at least at best a number four linebacker. But so now all of a sudden there's this risk of Ventrell Miller and Devin Lloyd potentially. There might be more of a competition there than we realized. Sean, what's your take after hearing some of that drive information that I just laid out?
Yeah, I think you're messing with with all my favorites over here between James Williams and Devin Lloyd and some of these others here. Trying to sabotage me here in preseason week 2. Um, I don't know. I thought we were past this weird rotation stuff we had last year. It's a
Good
bit
news is it
worrisome.
looks like we are for Foye.
Yeah, yeah. Foye is safe. Yay. He's not the one I'm drafting because he's still going in that top 5 range in a lot of these drafts. So I haven't been able to get him where I feel safe taking him. But Devin Lloyd is somebody I'm picking up as an LB 3 to 4 in a lot of these. So I am a little bit more nervous here. Uh,
And so let me jump in here while you continue to think on that one. What's interesting is Andrew Campagna, the new defensive coordinator who came back for Green Bay. I don't know butcher's his last name.
Campanelli, right?
Campanella, yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, Andrew C. came over from the Packers. There was talk that he was going to use the same type of system, which was great for both Quay Walker and Edrin Cooper's breakout in the second half of the year. Lloyd would have been playing more of that Cooper role, which felt really good. And part of the reason you felt good about drafting Lloyd as that number three linebacker with huge upside.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah, and this is a
Sean, you're
contract year.
sweating on this one right now,
Yeah,
man.
I've been
For
sweating all
those
day,
that are
man. It's
just
hot.
listening and not watching, he's sweating.
Yeah. I'm still sticking with Lloyd for now, but it's not safe. It doesn't feel good. Um, Maybe
I've
this is just, I'm chalking it up as just one of those crazy preseason. Let's mess around and see what were to happen if so and so got injured.
I hope you're right, and I think you're
Me
right.
too.
But this is another one that in week 3 of the preseason, we're gonna watch very carefully, and hopefully they do play their starters enough so that we can try and get a read on it.
They'll
But
rest all 3 of them.
yeah, that could be. You could see Jack Kaiser starting.
That'd be
Um,
good.
that would, but it doesn't help give clarity to this situation. I'm probably dropping Devin Lloyd down a little bit, not a ton in my rankings. I
Yeah.
have some people similar in that spot that I like in the same tier, I'm going to draft maybe them instead of Lloyd right now until this plays out. All
I
right.
don't blame you. I think it's the right thing to do right now, especially like I say with all this going on. Don't just completely toss him out yet, but yeah, definitely be cautious of it.
So the Raiders play the 49ers, moving on to the Raiders. And they had the same starters as the previous week with Devin White, and he had the green dot, Landon Roberts, and Jermaine Pratt. And just like in the previous week 1 of the preseason, Landon Roberts on the field on obvious running downs comes off on not on more obvious passing situations as we expected. Okay, so Devin White, feeling good about him in the green dot, and hopefully he has a renaissance. And he too actually was moving around. He was chasing things down and getting in on some plays and all. So he looked fairly good. So that was the good news. But then there comes the bad news. Jermaine Pratt, he was playing on the edge, and often, but when he was playing, he played. Let's see, 7 of the 12 snaps that he played were on the edge, and he only played 12 of the first 16 snaps. And Jamal Adams basically took his spot on the field when Pratt came off. So it was almost like a four-person rotation. And it wasn't necessarily consistent in terms of down and distance, in terms of this, Roberts was off, but it
Mhm.
wasn't consistent on, in terms of alignment, down and distance, in terms of when it was Adams and when it was Pratt. So once again, Pratt, 12 of 16 snaps he played, and then 7 of those 12 were on the edge, which we saw what playing linebackers on the edge. We just talked about the Jaguars, what it did to Luakan and Lloyd and some of their stats because that happened to them quite a bit last year. That's why their defensive coordinator was fired, by the way. So anyway, right now, Pratt has to drop down based on a combination of the being played on the edge and then still where the week before he's pretty much stayed on 100% even though he had some edge work. Now this particular game he didn't even play 100% of the snaps. Sean?
Yeah, I'm with you. Pratt has to go down if it's and they've been raving about Jamal Adams playing too. So he's building steam over the last couple of weeks since he signed on. This is starting to turn into a bit of a mess itself. We thought Roberts was just a two down thumper, and that seems to be the case. Obvious passing situations, he's out, and I thought Pratt would be the you know probably the best until they confirmed that White was the green dot. He's staying on the field too. Then they move White or Pratt to the edge. Man, it's getting confusing out there. I will say White's the only one I'm picking up right now, and in fact, I just drafted him as my LB6 in this league.
Which is an absolute steal.
It's
Absolute steal getting a green dot linebacker playing 100% of the snaps as a linebacker 6.
it's IDP only, and my LB5 was Peyton Wilson, and my LB4 was James Williams. So not great.
Well, luckily you have
Yeah, I got some backups here.
Wilson's going to do well, and White's going to do well to help out with that Williams
Yeah.
challenge that we just talked through. But so
Um,
you talked about Jamal Adams, and even one of the shoots, I wish I could remember who it was talking about, because Adams has been a safety his whole career basically. He did when during his peak time with the Seahawks, they bring him down like as a third linebacker and blitzed him a
yeah.
lot. And but a lot of the conversation, I wish I could remember who said it. It was either one of the starting linebackers or with the linebacker coach or defense or Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator. I wish I could remember who it was, but I remember somebody prominent saying he's adapted to that linebacker position like a fish to water. They talked about how he did a great job, in week one, setting the edge on a run when he was in there, forcing things back inside. So he's adapted to it like a fish in water. And so let me see, I wrote it down on the third series, it was Eichenberg, Matt Jones, and Jamal Adams. On the first play that blitzed Adams, and he got to the quarterback really fast. Unfortunately, not quite fast enough, and he got a roughing the passer penalty. But it reminded me of how the Seahawks used him in that blitzing mode. So this is going to be really interesting. Jamal Adams is someone, if in deeper leagues, I am trying to stash, potentially since he's a safety
Right.
who might be getting linebacker snaps. He's got safety. What's the word I'm looking for?
Eligibility.
Positional eligibility. Thank you. Just
Yeah.
something to keep an eye on. Particularly, um, we've seen Roberts not always play 100% of the games.
Mm-hmm.
Pratt, while he put up great stats, wasn't necessarily known as a defensive stud. It's not like he's had any All-Pro recognition or anything along those lines. Just something to watch. Sean?
Yeah. If the more Jamal Adams carves out that role, if it becomes more of a 50-50 with Pratt, then, like you say, with him being a safety or a DB, he's worth picking up. Yeah, because it sounds like, in Seattle, I think he had 9 sacks one year. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean that's potential there. So we're looking at tackles for a loss. We're looking at sacks, quarterback hits. If you're in those types of leagues, or sack yardage in those leagues. So there's potential points there from a safety that, and that's only at 50% of a rotation there. So if he actually becomes the number 2 next to White full time role, where you still have Roberts on and off the field there, then you're looking at a potential league winner there.
All right.
So
So
yeah.
you're in a draft tomorrow. You're at basically at roughly a linebacker 6 range, and Jamal Adams and James Williams are staring you there on the draft board.
Oh man.
Which one are you picking?
Oh, oh boy. With oh man, you hurt me here. I'll probably take the shot on Adams right now, just because of I know he's coming after the quarterback, whereas James Williams is dropping more into coverage. He's not really being used in a blitzing scenario like they did with Cedric Gray, where they sent him up. They're not really doing all that with James Williams. They're using him more as that safety, which he is converted safety. So he's more of a drop back coverage guy, and Jamal Adams is being deployed as a blitzer, as a attacker the quarterback. So I think those are your better points.
All right. All right. So now let's our last AFC team we have on the list, and then we'll move to NFC linebackers. In as the Chargers, uh, both Dayon Henley and Denzel Perriman, they continue as the starters. Perriman stayed on the field on a second and long, just as the FYI, which was interesting. Troy Dye and Junior Colson were the backups. Dye left the game long before Junior Colson did. Junior Colson once again went to the second half, and Dye went out in the late first half. If you're a dynasty owner, are you looking to try and trade Junior Colson before some of your dynasty mates catch on?
Yeah.
Or are you going to be patient and hold on to him?
Nope. I'm cutting him. I'm trading him right now if I can. I think it's just going to get. It's not a good sign at all. That's what two. Were they at the Hall of Fame game?
Yes, they were at the Hall of Fame game as
Okay,
well.
that's
Correct.
that's where he played like the entire game, right, all the way into the
And
fourth
he
quarter, or whatever.
and he played really poorly too.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not good. Uh, Honestly, I've been picking up Troy Dye in some of these really deep leagues as a bit of a stash on the bench type because I have no faith in Denzel Perryman staying healthy. And Troy Dye, I think, is the obvious third to a if you want to go that far. I think Perryman gets it just because he's the veteran there. And
And
Colson,
Perryman has been injury prone.
yeah, yeah, it's coming. So Troy Dye is somebody I'm kind of handcuffing in really deep leagues late in the draft. And Colson, I'm not looking at all. If it's dynasty, I'm trying to get rid of him for just about anything I can get right now.
Oh, I'd be trying. Well, actually, I wouldn't go that far. I'd try and find the sucker first who hasn't been paying attention, and
Yeah,
and try
find the
trying to,
sucker first. Yeah,
yeah, and remind of how Colson played at Michigan under Harbaugh and mentored the defensive coordinator now for the Chargers, and what a great steal he is, and he's still fairly young, and in next year, we're later this
yeah.
year, and
Perryman's going to get hurt. They're going to put Colson in.
exactly that is my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Ricky's liar takes.
Well, that's why our listeners
There
and
you go.
watchers are here with us. We're
Don't
giving
share
them
this show
tricks
with
of
your
the
friends,
trade.
folks.
Exactly. No, no, no. Share it. They,
Oh wait, oh yeah.
yeah, they probably won't listen to the whole hour or so. Speaking of the whole hour or so, we just made it through the AFC linebackers. We haven't got to the NFC linebackers, some defensive back takes, some defensive line takes. We usually try and keep this to hour 10 minutes, folks. We're going to run long, so um, if you need to take a break or something, come back. We understand, but please come back. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content and learning a lot of stuff from what we've been sharing in terms of what we've been seeing. There's more to come as we continue to show. So just know we're going to run long, everybody. And with that, let's go to the Eagles and let's talk about their linebackers. And I told everybody this is continuing to get interesting as we move down the list. And so let's talk about what happened. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Jahad Campbell started and played the first 2 series. Jahad Campbell had a blitz sack right up the middle. We'll come back and talk about that here in a little bit. That was on the first series. And then on the third series, Campbell came out. Trotter stayed in, was joined by Smail Munden, the rookie from University of Georgia, I believe, 5th-round pick. So it's like, ooh, does this mean now Campbell has earned the starting position next to Bond? Oh, not necessarily, because then Campbell came in, Trotter went out, and Campbell played with Munden on that next drive. The second half, Trotter and Munden started, and then they were done. And Campbell didn't play in the second half. Sean, who's going to be starting next to Zach Bond? Question number one for the Eagles in week one. I know we've
Cooper
talked about this.
DeJean.
That would be incorrect. I think we've rolled out Munden.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
is it
I don't think
Campbell?
Munden's
Is
the
it
guy.
Trotter? Or is it a rotation?
I think it's rotation. I, I,
Come on. No, it's not going to be a rotation.
you don't think
you,
so?
you really think it's going to be rotation?
Yeah,
I'll
why
let you go
not?
first.
Yeah, I think Trotter still gets in there.
So
At least for, I think to start the season off, I think Trotter still gets a share. I don't think it's going to be a big share. I do think it's going to be depending on the game. Uh, if they come out the first week or two and it's a blowout, then I think Campbell gets to come in and really kind of learn a little bit. But I think Trotter gets in the first couple weeks, and then it's going to be all Campbell.
So I kind of bumped you on the rotation thing you said, but actually I do think that's what's going to happen. I think on the first series, the Eagles are on defense. I think Trotter's in,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think they will probably alternate series to give Campbell that opportunity, and then eventually Campbell will because he's an athletic freak compared to Trotter. Not that
Yeah,
Trotter's
yeah,
not that Trotter's horrible or anything, but I just think Campbell's the athletic freak, and eventually I think some of the bigger plays will happen, and then it'll be obvious to everyone, and they can feel good about. Particularly since Trotter is a legacy. Remember his father and so forth played for the Eagles for many years. So I think this is a way of easing Campbell in as well because he did miss some of the training camp and some of the OTAs and all. So he's still learning. Maybe it's two Trotter series, one Campbell at first, and then becomes even, and then eventually it becomes mostly Campbell and Trotter's on special teams. Now, when we get to Nakobe Dean being ready to be activated from PUP later in the year, we've talked about that in the past. Does that mean Campbell starts playing more of the edge? We'll see as the season progresses. We'll talk about that as the year progresses, but that's how I think we're going to see this playing out. Sean?
yeah. I'm with you. I do think it's going to be a quick rotation to where the first game we're going to see that rotation. Second game, slight rotation where Campbell takes over 75%, and then by week 3, I think Campbell's got it all.
Okay.
I think it's going to be pretty quick
Oh, you
in
think it'll be that
progression.
quick? Okay. All right.
I do. If he can sit there and pull off some of the big plays we think he can, the splash plays, sack, interception, whatever, force fumbles, if he can do enough of that and not blow his coverage or, get too many missed tackles or something, then I think they have to put him in there that quick.
Okay. So you talked about big plays. Zach Bond, I forgot to look up how many sacks he had last year. And I would want to do that before the show, and it slipped my mind.
I want to
So
say 4, 3 or
I thought it
4.
was 5, but
Was it 5?
so
I'll look it up.
regardless, but now, and part of how he did that is some of these blitzes up the middle, or occasionally they put him on the edge, just occasionally. But he was a former defensive end in college with Wisconsin, who the Saints should have maybe tried to move him to off-ball linebacker and not let him leave as they did Caden Ellis and others. I digress. Um, but anyway, so with Campbell and his capabilities, do you think that means Bond is dropping into coverage more, and Campbell, as he takes over, to your point, is doing more of the blitzing and takes away some of that big play scoring from Bond, maybe capping Bond's ceiling a little bit?
Uh, I don't think so because the way they worked it with Nakobe Dean last year, they were both kind of going after the quarterback, dropping back. It seemed pretty even as far as the big plays, as far as the sacks and the interceptions. And Bond had 3.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles. Fun fact. While I was there, and I think Nakobe Dean was right there with him on sacks or maybe one off, and then interceptions. Bond only had one, where I think Nakobe Dean had more. So if I'm trading some interceptions, am I picking up sacks or am I losing sacks, picking up interceptions? I really don't think it's going to be anything that's going to cut into Bond here. Just because of the way they used him and Nakobe Dean last year, I think it's just Vic Fangio's system where he's going to get his guys plenty of plays.
Okay. Dean had 6 quarterback hits and 3 sacks, as I'm looking it up right here, and 1 interception, just for our audience there. So
It's
you
pretty
bring up a
close,
good
yeah.
point. I have to admit, I worry a little bit about Bond's ceiling, particularly with 5 forced fumbles. That's a very unusually high number,
Hmm.
you know. So I think Bond will still be a linebacker one, but I don't know if he finishes top 2 to 3, depending on your scoring systems.
He's going in that anywhere between 1 and 3 most drafts. So he's still one of the type guys taken.
Well, and I'm still comfortable with that. No different than Roquan Smith, who in a
Sure.
lot of leagues, finishes, he finished last year 10, 12, 13, depending on
Yeah,
your scoring
he's always
system
the
and so
top
forth.
10 area.
But but
You're
it's
just
it's
getting a
one of these
return.
safe picks.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's the Eagles. Now, the New York Giants. We need to talk
Hmm.
about them now, Sean. So there was another. They had a three-man rotation as well, but the green dot usage was very interesting. Okereke on the first drive wore the green dot. McFadden went out on third downs. Second drive, McFadden wears the green dot. Okereke goes out on third down. So they flipped. Third drive, McFadden has the green dot with Darius Muasau. Fourth drive, Muasau's wearing the green dot, and Okereke came back into the game. Now, Brian Dable said after the game they were trying to make sure, they got an even amount of snaps or, something along those lines, basically. But that was, an Okereke, Sean, the defensive coordinator for the Giants. Shame on me for not remembering his name. He was with the
Uh,
Titans previously. Whatever his name is, the DC didn't even realize how Okereke was down so much in tackles when the year started. When he got asked in a press conference around halfway through the year, and Okereke, was way down year over year in tackles to that point. Do they not have the faith in him? And is this the beginning of McFadden taking over the green dot? And Okereke is pretty expensive. Are we going to see Okereke as a surprise cut a week from now? Or are you like, oh, they're just trying to give these people, different opportunities and so forth, Sean?
so I believe it's Shane Bowen is
Shane,
uh,
thank you very much.
is the guy there, and
Yeah.
then I don't believe him one bit on that. We were trying to get equal snaps there. Um, I believe last week I said Okereke was my potential bust, just because I feel like for whatever reason this staff doesn't seem to be big on him, and if they're not paying attention, then obviously they're treating him like he's not there. So potentially cut, traded, benched. I don't like the situation at all. In fact, I have zero Okereke shares. I am worried. Uh, I would say McFadden is probably the safest pick here, and you can get him quite a bit later than you have to give up for Okereke.
Yeah. I have 0 shares of Okereke this year as well. So I'm right there with you now. And that was before some of this, noise, for lack of a better term, has come out.
Yeah.
Didn't have a good feeling about him this year where people were drafting him. I was not interested. And so I am down on Okereke. And to your point, if McFadden is later, he's tends to be much later in a lot of these drafts, you can get him. Like we were talking about some of the other folks
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the show. I'm in on taking a chance on McFadden much later. And if it turns out Okereke does start, McFadden only plays 75-80% of the snaps and all,
Yeah.
I'm not losing much, but I'm
It,
losing a hell of a lot if I pick Okereke and then he ends up falling out of favor.
yeah, because you have to take Okereke as a top 10,
Yeah.
if not a little higher than that. Like he's still going that high, and it's blowing my mind that nobody's really picking up on it.
And it's interesting how quickly some of these linebackers can fall out of favor.
Right.
We talked about Jerome Baker as an example, David Long, uh,
Yes.
Zach
Darius
Cunningham
Darius
as a
Leonard, Devin White, just a year ago or whatever. That was
well, Leonard was injury in fairness with his
true.
back and so forth, but it can happen like that for a lot of these linebackers who we're treating as linebacker twos, linebacker threes one year, and the next year, poof, it can be gone. So Okereke is one that makes me very nervous, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're a year from now when we're going through these shows, Okereke is a number 3 linebacker on some other team next year. And
Yep.
So and he's getting up there in age. People don't realize he's approaching that 30
And it
number.
was back injury last year. I think he was having problems with back injuries. Don't usually go away. They
That's
just
that's
they
that's
have good days and bad days.
which Mapuka Nakua shares don't like hearing that related to Matt Stafford. I'm right there with you. All right, the Cowboys. Jack Sanborn started the mic wearing the green dot. He was flanked by Maris Lufau, and Damone Clark from the LSU Tigers. When it went to passing situations, Clark came off the field. Now, Kenneth Murray did not play at all. Now, I have to admit, I didn't watch carefully to see if I saw him on the sidelines in any way. He could have been on the sidelines. I hadn't heard that he was hurt. I mean, I know he missed some time previously because his wife was having a baby, but all indications have been that Sanborn was going to start with Murray and Lufau would be the number 3 and Clark number 4. Sanborn and Lufau did come out on the third series. Clark stayed on with the green dot with Shamar James, the rookie 5th-round pick out of, I believe, Miami, Florida. So, do you think Sanborn maintains the green dot for the full year?
I I think so. He seems to be the safest pick of this bunch. Uh, you talk
Not
about Murray.
exciting, but
No,
safe.
no, safest, not
Uh,
not totally safe, but safest. He has been the guy throughout all practice, OTA stuff like that, camps. Murray left for childbirth, and I didn't see any kind of injury or hey, we're going to just rest Murray. It just happened. Uh, I haven't seen anything since that suggests that it was the plan to rest him and not play him. I think I like Sanborn the best here. Again, it's somebody I'm taking LB 4 or 5 range, and then if I miss out on him, Murray's going around the same time as Sanborn. Then I'll just come back and pick Luafau up as a dart throw in that Troy Dye area I was talking before, as just like a lay round handcuff or just a dart throw of somebody with big play potential here. We seen last year he was able to get after the quarterback, get some sacks, stuff like that. So I like his upside, and he's getting a lot of rave reviews right now in camp. He's really starting to take over as well. So I am worried that Murray is going to be the odd man out here.
he's going to lay an egg. So
It's looking that way.
yeah. So I'm right there with you, Sanborn, where you described from drafting him. I'm not touching Kenneth Murray. I know they traded for him. I know they gave up a draft pick. I know he's got a fairly expensive contract. I haven't gone into some of the websites to like Spotrac or any of these others to see what the cap hit might be. But I wouldn't be surprised to not see Murray on the roster here when cuts come as well. So that's just something. And Lufau is getting the rave reviews. Even if Murray does make it and he does start the season, to your point, is it week 3, week 4, week 5? Lufau's in there next to Sanborn, particularly when the Cowboys are getting gashed in the run game. They're going to get Lufau on
Yeah,
the field somehow because Murray has been a very inefficient tackler and usually has a high missed tackle rate according to PFF. So that won't go well with some of the problems they have in the front 4 in terms of stopping the run. So I'm grabbing Lufau. I'm grabbing him around the same spot I would grab a Sanborn, maybe slightly below him. I'm not touching Murray.
yeah, yeah. I think that's the right call.
All right. So just a few others with just some quick notes I want to share with folks. With the Packers, the starters didn't play. I talked last week, and this is why the only reason I'm bringing up that it looked like Isaiah Simmons was the number 4 linebacker. He has been getting torched in pass coverage. I mean, it's been bad, so much so now that there's talk that he might not even make the team. A lot of the Packers, 53-man projections that various beat writers now put out are now leaving Simmons out. But Tyron Hopper actually played the Mike role. Um, but once again, Walker sat out, Cooper sat out, McDuffie sat out. Hopper was the number 4 linebacker, basically as the Mike, with Simmons and Welch on the side. So, and they think because of Welch's special teams, he'll make it. Simmons gets cut. So I just wanted, based because I mentioned Simmons last week as a number 4, and some of the more recent stuff I'm reading here and seeing, just want people to be aware of that. On the Bucs side of things, Levante David sat out. Servatia Dennis and Deion Jones started last week. We talked about both of those two last week. Go back and listen to it if you missed it. Another great show last week. Servatia came out on the fourth drive. He was replaced by Nick Jackson, the undrafted free agent, who played alongside Deion Jones there. Nick Jackson had a hell of a game. I've read a couple of things throughout camp where his name came up a couple of times, but now in some of these fifth three-man projections, particularly with how well he played in game two, they're saying Nick Jackson might make the team as this number 4 linebacker. So deep league stash, taxi squad kind of stash. Keep particularly with Levante David's age, Deion Jones being older, and granted he went to LSU, but this might be his last year as well, kind of thing. So Nick Jackson, just someone to keep an eye. You heard it here. Hopefully, you heard it here first, but if not, maybe second. But you heard it here. Nick Jackson, someone to stash. Okay, moving to the Seahawks. Tyrese Knight was out with a knee injury, but apparently there's some other injury that's not really being talked about. Uh, but he's supposed to be back for week one. A little bit nervous on that. Will he really be back for week one? Even if he is, he's probably only playing 80% of the snaps. What was interesting, though, was who played in Tyrese Knight's spot. It wasn't Drake Thomas who was kind of playing that Ernest Jones role. When Jones was out, it was actually Patrick O'Connell who was playing in that role. If Tyrese Knight is missing the first couple of weeks and you have some other injuries, are you picking up Patrick O'Connell and playing him, Sean?
No, I don't think there's enough snaps there, enough playing time to really justify it.
Yeah. So all the beat writers talk about how bad the Seattle Seahawks inside linebacker depth is between behind those two. So Bobby Okereke is going to be a free agent, end up as a backup there, Kenneth Murray, by about week 8. It'll be interesting to see.
Be a good place for Cole Holcomb to get traded to.
Yeah, exactly right. You never know, but they do need some depth there. Don't go chasing Patrick O'Connell if you heard that he got that starting assignment next night. Don't do it. Find somebody else. We talked about a lot of other names y'all can go after. Moving to the 49ers, Fred Warner sat out. Tatum Bethune started in his place alongside D. Winters. Um, Luke Gifford was the number 3 linebacker, the Sam, strong side, whatever you want to call it. Uh, Winters made one hell of a tackle on Ginty. It looked like a WWE wrestling move, kind of off the top rope kind of thing. It was real pretty. He clearly has a starting role. Nick Martin did overrun a couple of tackles, but you could see why they liked him in terms of he got a sack. He did get some other tackles. He does run all over the field like a hair on fire. He played a little bit more under control. He didn't miss nearly as many as tackles, but he did miss a couple. But right now, it's still D. Winters as the number 2, folks. Sean?
Yeah, I'm fine with Winters. I thought all off season he'd get a fair shot. It looked like he won it, and he's running with it. So, but depth looks good in case there's any injuries this year.
By the way, Diamador Lenore, the cornerback,
Mm-hmm.
he's still looking for the license plate number of the truck that ran over him. That truck by the name of Ashton Ginty. Oh my goodness. Now Lenore's a very good cornerback, but my gosh, that was you know, I didn't hear a beep, beep, beep or anything like get out the way, man. He just trucked him. All right, I'll leave it at that. Just thought I'd throw a little humor there. Finishing off with the Rams from a linebacker perspective here. Nate Landman, Omar Spates, and Troy Reeder did not play. Chris Paul, the 5th-round pick out of Ole Miss, and undrafted free agent Sean Dolac started. This week, though, Sean Dolac wore the green dot, not Chris Paul. Point one, number one. Point number 2 is Chris Paul left the game with an injury, and I haven't heard any updates yet in terms of how serious the injury was or wasn't. So right now, it is the Nate Landman show as the starting Mike. And of course, the second linebacker with the Rams has tended to only get like 70-75% of the snaps. So, and that looks like that's going to be Spates' role currently with Reeder as the backup. Landman, where are you drafting him? Is he up to linebacker 2 for you yet?
He's going as like an LB late LB3, high 4. So nobody's up on him just yet. He is picking up a little bit of steam over the last couple uh, drafts I've been a part of, but mostly unnoticed. He is going, like I say, later, and I think the return is going to be really nice. for whoever picks him up. I've just missed out on him a couple times now.
Yeah, so if his whatever his ADP is, bumping up around folks and grab Landman, and you're going to probably get someone as a late 3, early 4, depending on your drafts, who's going to give you probably linebacker 2 production. Do you?
Yeah,
I see
yeah,
you're nodding your
I'd
head.
be safe.
Yes,
I'd be safe with that assessment. Again, I like that young defensive line in front of him to help keep him clean, to give him plenty of lanes to come in and make tackles, get in the backfield, and all that. This spot, whoever's been there over the last several years has produced. So it's a great spot for linebackers.
exactly right. No, so that concludes our linebackers talk, and this is usually about the time we're wrapping up the show. We still got some DB stuff to talk about. We got some D lineman stuff to talk about, folks. So hang in there with us. Or if you need to take a break, go for a jog, go eat a snack, and come on back and listen to more. So, but before we talk about the defensive backs, got to put a plug for IDP Plus. I keep on saying it, folks. You have great content, folks, both in terms of some of the stuff you're hopefully listening to with us. A lot of our other peers, like Axton Harding, is doing a great job. So many more out there. Go Johnny Freaking Fantasy, who's going to join us on our next show if everything goes according to plan. A lot of great content out there, both verbal and written, in terms of articles. Old man Randy Johnson does, as an example, writing great articles. Some great tools on the website that you're going to love during the season in terms of seeing um, by position how certain teams do against certain positions. So, for example, if you have a linebacker on the Bears and they happen to be playing the Packers, how do the Packers do in terms of giving up points to linebackers? You have tools like that. You have scoring 3 different scoring systems to choose from, um, in terms of, and then using that, the one that's closest to your scoring system. You can see how people at different positions are ranking from number 1 at linebacker through whatever, or all defensive positions. I mean, so many great tools out there. Of course, you have our rankings out there as well. A lot of great stuff at IDP Plus, folks. Go check it out. An incredible site, great tools, great rankings, great people, great Discord. Check it out. All righty. With that, now let's move to the defensive backs. The Patriots. We got to start with the Patriots. It's part of the reason I started with the AFC East at linebackers, because I wanted to make sure we start with the Patriots and Kyle Duggar, who, as a side note, Sean Teague has been calling out multiple times that Kyle Duggar is one of his defensive back busts for this year. And he did that in a show like 3 weeks ago again. And sure enough, here we are. In the practice before week 2 of preseason, he got bumped to the second team in practice, and even was doing some scout teamwork. Then carried into the game where Craig Woodson and Jalen Hawkins started and played 100% of the snaps on the first couple of drives. Hawkins came out on the 3rd drive, and that's when Duggar went in. On the last play of the game, when the Vikings were trying to tie it, and Max Brosmer, their 4th-string quarterback for the Vikings, threw a pass into the end zone on the last play of the game to try and get a chance for a tie. You know who intercepted that pass?
Kyle Duggar.
Kyle Duggar. That is correct, Sean. Was it that obvious if you didn't know it? It was Kyle Duggar. He is not usually a great sign, folks, when you're playing that late into the 4th quarter, let alone the last game. Now, Mike Vrabel said, well, we had to play 11 people on the field, was kind of his reaction when somebody asked him about it. This is not a good sign, particularly with his contract that he signed. And on top of that, Jabril Peppers didn't play in this game. Now, Jabril Peppers played a decent amount of slot in the first game, but I expected that'll be Peppers and Hawkins probably starting at safety. And then when it goes to 3 wide, we actually see Peppers, or maybe even a dime situation. Maybe Marcus Jones and him are the 2, inside cornerbacks, whatever. But so I'm not jumping on the Craig Woodson bandwagon quite yet. At least that's my feeling. So I'm out on Duggar completely. How are you feeling about Peppers, though? Do you think Peppers should be a higher scoring safety for the Patriots? Or do you think it's Hawkins? Or do you disagree with me on Woodson?
No, I'm not ready to jump on Woodson just yet. Now, Hawkins, just a couple years ago, 3 years ago, down in Atlanta, he was having a pretty solid season. And yeah, I
But
think
then they eventually released him.
he got released, or Yeah, I think he got hurt. I think he missed all last year or the year before or something. Yeah. Injuries have kind of made him lose his name over the last year or two. Um, and Peppers, again, another guy who gets hurt. So it's hard to trust any of these guys. If you're going to take a shot, I think I like Hawkins here. Even though Peppers
Interesting.
is in the slot, defensive backs, I got no problem picking one up. Use him. If he gets hurt, drop him, pick up somebody else. No big deal there. But I think just for to start out with, I think I want to give Hawkins a shot here over Peppers.
So now I'm cheating because one of the stats I didn't share is that Hawkins played only 37% of the snaps in the box or slot.
Mm-hmm. So he's
So
deep.
so he played 63% deep. So that adds up to 100 folks. So I am a CPA as a side note. So I'm usually fairly good with numbers. I digress. But anyway, Peppers is the choice for me at this point in time. So if I'm taking the late dart throw right now, it's Peppers. But we'll see how it plays out. But the main message is stay away from,
Yeah, Duggar.
absolutely, stay away from Kyle Duggar. Now,
Until we see him get released or traded or whatever to another team, and even then, you're probably going to have to give him several weeks to get worked in. So for the
yeah,
foreseeable
exactly.
future, no Duggar.
All right. So one of the things I was wondering is because he's struggling in coverage in particular, is does somebody try and make him a linebacker at some point, given his size and physicality? So just another thing to keep in mind: if he does get picked up, who picks him up and where are they deploying him? And if he's got a safety designation with a linebacker, just something for people to watch. Sean, you're about to say something?
Now, I thought I had a team in mind there right off the bat. Colts would be a good spot to give that a shot at. They are hurting it both at safety and linebacker, or defensive back and linebacker. I think that'd be a good fit.
And once again, things are sometimes so scheme dependent. And if it
That's
was the
true.
same defensive staff from last year with the Patriots, maybe we're not having this discussion about Duggar at all. But anyway, so
Shows nobody's safe.
that's
When new
exactly right.
coaches come in, doesn't matter how long you've been there or how good you are for IDP.
Right. So moving on to the Steelers now, from a defense back perspective, and I watched this guy come in and make an incredible tackle. I was like, wow, who is that? It was Juan freaking Thornhill. Like, and then I saw another one where he came in like that. I'm like, this can't be Juan Thornhill. Whatever they've done in Pittsburgh, he's drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever. Now he's still playing a deep safety kind of role, but just something to just keep an eye on. Deshaun Elliott, who we're both very, if I remember correctly, we're both very high on. He did not play in this game. Chuck Clark was the box safety. Chuck Clark also looked very good as well. So at first, I think you and I were maybe thinking, does Clark end up taking over for Thornhill? Based on the way I saw Thornhill playing and then some positive vibes from Tomlin, I'm not so sure that that's going to happen right now. I think Clark is just some good, solid depth, and I think it's Deshaun Elliott and Thornhill right now.
Yeah, that was my call a few weeks ago. Is that Chuck Clark would come in, leapfrog Thornhill, and take over, and be relevant again. And yeah, I think I'm with you. I think he is the clear three out of this bunch, and I don't know if I'm ready to go pick up Thornhill, but I'll definitely keep an eye
I'm
on
not
him.
either. Just
Yeah,
keeping an eye. Yep.
yeah, yeah, for sure. If I have an injury or need him, or if his production just keeps rolling, then yeah, then pick him up because I'm sure he's on the waivers.
All right. So I had Coates and Hunter Wohler and Nick Cross in here, but we ended up talking about them on the linebacker section. So if y'all been jumping around, folks, go back and listen to the Coates and linebacker sections. A really good discussion. We also talked about the safeties there as well. The Texans, MJ Stewart started in place of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Of course, had that knee injury, and there's been, it turned out he wasn't going to miss the year, but it's been not clear about was he going to be able to come back or not. And then after MJ Stewart, it was Jalen Mills, who they recently signed, who came in for MJ Stewart. But then all of a sudden, some good news today. Chauncey Gardner Johnson is practicing on the side. He wasn't involved in the individual team drills, but he's on the side. With a couple of weeks left until the regular season, it feels like it bodes well for him being able to start week one. So, Sean, are you drafting him where you normally would, and where do you see Chauncey Gardner Johnson from a safety position? Is he a linebacker three for you, a linebacker two? in this Houston system?
I'm not. I'm not taking any Houston safety. I really don't like any of them. Chauncey Gardner has some big games here and there. So if I'm playing best ball, I'm taking a shot at him. MJ Stewart's always the guy that comes in and fills in for whatever injury, whether it be in the slot, safety, whatever. And even Kalen Bullock, I'm not real strong on either. So, but if you like Gardner Johnson, safety two is probably a good spot. Late two is
Yeah,
where I'd feel okay taking him.
I have him as a safety too, and I feel a lot better about him, both him and Kalen Bullock. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a couple of things. The Texans' defense has been absolutely phenomenal during preseason. For all the press positive about Carolina, blah blah blah, and watching those series with Bryce, they just absolutely
You're
dominated
right.
Bryce Young in that Panthers defense. I mean, offense just dominated them. And uh, with that pass rush and the corners with Lassiter and Stingley, I think it's going to. Whereas, and then where Fangio played a lot of two deep safeties, where which took away from some of Gardner Johnson's productivity, you're going to see Bullock playing a little bit more deep, and Gardner Johnson playing a little bit more closer to the line. I think Gardner Johnson's might be a little bit of a surprise this year for folks on the positive side. And on top of that, right now, Ricky's call here on as we're recording this on August 19th is that Caleb Bullock is going to lead the league in interceptions this year. Mark it down.
Kalen Bullock,
Yes, so mark
IT leader.
eight inter,
Bold take.
eight
8.
interceptions this year.
That's about 7 too many.
Wow. Okay. All right. Make it 7. Okay. Eight's a little strong. Let's make it 7. But he will lead the league or be tied for the league in interceptions. Kalen Bullock. Mark that down. So if you play in a big scoring league for interceptions, there's your man, folks. You heard it here first. All right. Moving on to the Jaguars. It's clear that Eric Murray, once again, watching that Saints Jags game, and once again, for those that might have didn't catch it at the beginning, I watched all the important series from all 16 games because week 2 usually shares so much more than week 3 kind of shares as so many starters sit out in week 3. So that's why I paid a lot of attention for you folks. And Eric Murray was a clear number 1 for the Jags. And the question is, who's going to be starting next to him? Wingard, Savage, Antonio Johnson, Caleb Warsaw, the rookie who was a cornerback, who's being moved to safety, and people thought, oh, that's a cheat code, and he's going to start next to Murray. Well, he's been injured. That's not going to happen at least early in the year, maybe next year, kind of thing. And at that point, he'll probably be moved to a safety designation. So Murray and Wingard started, and Wingard got a sack on a safety blitz on the first series against the Saints. Wasn't hard to do. Sean, you or I maybe could have done it. My poor Saints. On the second drive, it was Murray and Savage instead of Wingard, but Wingard did come. They went to a 3 safety package, and Wingard came in, and if I remember correctly, Vincenzo Miller went out when Wingard came in on that. On the third drive, Wingard and Savage, and by the way, we talked about linebackers earlier. If you missed that, go check out the Jags. Wingard and Savage on the third drive. Fourth drive was Savage and Wingard and Daniel Thomas and Antonio Johnson all played on the fourth drive. On the fifth drive, it was Savage and Wingard. Now, I didn't do all 22s. This is just from watching the normal broadcast, so I could have missed some third safety stuff and all. But I think it's Eric Murray, who I'll let you talk about Eric Murray in a second, and everybody else. And I don't think we're touching about everybody else. So talk about where you think is Eric Murray a safety 2, safety 3 in your mind, because he's probably about 100% of the snaps. And then do you agree with me? Everybody else we're not touching.
Yeah, Murray's a 2, probably a mid to late 2 for me. Yeah, with the threat of a rotation again, because last year it was Antonio Johnson, Savage in the slot, and then that swapped, and Savage kind of took over for Johnson, who was struggling quite a bit in coverage, and then Cisco left. Murray comes in, clear cut number 1, the only one worth taking a shot on. I will say if Wingard does take over this number 2 spot, he would be worth some stream potential throughout the year. Just if the matchups are right, he has put up some decent tackle numbers and sacks, interceptions, and whatnot throughout the years. But he's been in Jacksonville forever. He's he's like a high scale backup.
You're
I
saying he's
guess
not Kyle Hamilton, is
he
what you're
is
saying?
not Kyle Hamilton. You will never get those two confused in any way. So no, outside of Murray, there's so many DBs you can pick from. You can probably avoid this situation altogether.
Yeah. Now, to your point, if Wingard does end up as the starter full time next to Murray, and it's bye weeks and there's 6 teams out, and depending on the matchup, Wingard could be someone you pick up for that bye week kind of thing. So I'm right there with you, but I'm not touching Savage. He just
No.
hasn't been an IDP player with Packers, with the Jags, etc. And Tony Johnson couldn't hold the starting job last year with Cisco, who they let go, and so forth. So anyway, yeah, we're lining the Jags. Moving to the Chiefs now. This was disappointing and some really bad news
Oh
for,
man.
for the Jaden Hicks shares. So Brian Cook and Shamari Connor started at safety. Jaden Hicks was not on the field. When Connor moved into the slot when they went to 3 wide is when Hicks came in. When it was only 2 wide, Hicks was off the field. Now Connor got shaken up and went off the field, and Hicks came in his place, and then stayed in with Cook. But on top of that, there was discussion, and we hit on it briefly at one point. I can't remember when it was, Sean, that we talked about it. That part of the reason for signing Christian Fulton was to have Fulton in one corner and either Jalen Watson or Najee Johnson or Noah Williams, the rookie, on the other outside corner, so they could play McDuffie in the slot. McDuffie would start on the outside with Fulton, but then move to the slot 3 wide and so forth. If that ends up happening, that means McDuffie, and with McDuffie in the slot, that means Connor maybe stays at safety. And that's really, really bad for Jade Hicks. And Fulton has started practicing, by the way, as a side note. So are we giving up on Jaden Hicks already? I'm ready to throw in the towel, particularly from a redraft perspective on Jaden Hicks right now, because it feels like it's going to be the same Chiefs safety rotation that we saw. Just instead of Justin Reed's out and it's Hicks, Connor, and Cook. Sean, you agree with me on that?
Yeah, it's really hurt me because I've seen just how good a player Hicks is. Coverage, and he's a thumper. He can lay some pretty good hits too. That's one reason I liked him coming out of college. Was his ability to go seek violence on some of these hits, and like I said, he's got the instincts to be a ball hawk also, and he's proven that last year and this preseason already. Uh, I'm honestly hoping. I don't like hoping for injuries, but I'm hoping Fulton doesn't play and McDuffie stays outside. Connor goes to the slot, and I get Hicks on the field at least 80% of the time. But all indications are that he is the third guy and will not be on the field, but maybe 40-50% of the time at most in some of these looks. Uh,
So until
best
there's
ball, yeah, best ball. You take a shot on him late in the draft, redraft. You can't start him. Not with that kind of snap percentage.
Yeah. Now, if there's an injury to one of those safeties, I'm jumping on him on waivers, like white on rice,
Absolutely,
green on grass,
yeah.
uh, stink on poop, whatever you want, whatever analogy you want to use there. But unless there's if there's no injuries, then not
If
he's way down the list now.
if I have a deep enough bench, and I do have Jaden Hicks on quite a few teams, most of them are best ball. But if my bench is deep enough and I don't have to drop him, I'll leave him on the bench and wait for the scenario to be right to start him. But if I need that spot, he's out. And he's still a defensive back who has less value. So
All right.
it sucks because I was looking forward to it this year.
Yep, exactly. Me too. So let's move to the NFC defensive backs. A few situations there. First with the Giants. Had a little bit of a panic moment when I saw Dane Belton starting next to Jevon Holland, and most of the Giants starters were in the game. And Belton's been getting a lot of rave reviews in practice. So it's like, holy crap, did they jump over Nubin? Nubin didn't play for some reason. I haven't been able to get the details on why. I haven't seen any injury reports, but Nubin did not play.
Yeah,
So,
they rested a couple guys.
okay,
Dexter Lawrence and Deontay Banks were also not in this game.
okay. But I think Banks was hurt,
I
and
think
Lawrence
Banks
is still
is
recovering
his
as well.
injury. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
once I got over and saw that Nubin didn't play, and I'm like, okay, I felt better. Now, they did talk about Dane Belton playing so well, and potentially because of some of the challenges at cornerback, that maybe there's more three safety looks when you get into some nickel and dime situations, so forth. So if there's any injuries to Holland or Newman, just want to plant the name Dane Belton with our listeners and watchers here, just to make sure they're aware of that name. Um, they're feeling really good about him in New York. Moving on to Eagles, the Monday practice. There's been talk about potentially doing it, but it never happened until the Monday practice. Cooper DeJean got time at the outside cornerback position across from Quinion Milchip. Um, the cornerback Keely Ringo from Georgia, who had been battling with Adoree Jackson, was getting some third team snaps at practice. And second, so second team, they were seeing Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson also gets the first team. Adoree Jackson, the new Jacorian Bennett, the new acquisition, to finish that statement, was getting some, second team. Now, Ringo did get a little bit second team as well, but Cooper DeJean got first team. Some first team snaps. That just shows you how little confidence they're having on that cornerback side. A week ago, I was really excited because it looked like maybe DeJean was going to start at safety and then move, next to Blankenship and then move into the slot, when it went to three wide and so forth, which, 100% of the time on the field. Now maybe he's going to have to play outside cornerback and you wonder if he's even going to get the slot snaps. And does Mac McWilliams maybe, who's been getting more slot snaps, the rookie fifth rounder, do they put him there? Or maybe they still move DeJean to the slot and then have one of the others in the corner. But Andrew Makuba had two big plays, the second round rookie out of Texas, with an interception, a pick six off of Dylan Gabriel because of some bad route running by the tight end and wide receiver. And then he also recovered a fumble. Seemed to bump him ahead potentially with those big plays of Sidney Brown. So, with all that being said, Cooper DeJean as a cornerback, do you see him as a cornerback one? Or are you saying, this is probably cornerback two now, Sean?
If he's playing outside, then I'm bumping him down to late two, early three. And in that case, I probably don't need him on my team. Most teams only start two, and if he's not giving me those juicy slot snaps there, then it's hard to trust. So unfortunate again. A lot of bad things happening to the defensive backs we like this year. Maybe this is just some playing around to see what could happen. One we got to keep an eye on here because Cooper DeJean has a lot of potential if he's back into his nickel spot there.
Yeah, instead of drafting him as a cornerback one in cornerback required leagues, I'm probably dropping him down to cornerback two. Most of my leagues require at least two cornerbacks
Yeah.
that I'm in. But so I'm not reaching, when I was feeling really good about him, thinking maybe, man, this could be a top three cornerback if he's playing cornerback and safety and getting almost 100% of the snaps. I was feeling good about a week ago. Now I'm not so feeling so
Complete
good after seeing these
opposite.
practice reports. Yeah, it's like, so and
What a
if
week!
yeah, that's why we're running so long, folks. I know we're nearing an hour and a half, and still got some more stuff. Hang in there with us, man. We got some more good stuff to cover. Um, but it's been an incredible week, and that's why, once again, going through all those details for our listening audience here. The Falcons, moving on to them. D. Alfred started in the slot. So D. Alfred took forever for them to re-sign him. And it's like, oh, okay. But then they finally re-signed him. Nobody else picked him up, but there he is, starting again. And if he plays that slot role many weeks, he can give you cornerback one numbers, once again, depending on the matchups and so forth. Billy Bowman's still challenging the rookie out of Oklahoma. I believe it was Oklahoma State, one of those. But anyway, but he hasn't taken over the role yet. So how are you treating Alfred from a draft perspective? Cornerback one, cornerback two right now?
I'm treating him like a two right now.
And that's because
I just like other guys more than him right now. But he is one I'll go to a lot of times, and he gets actually bypassed a lot, so he's easier to pick up later as one of my final draft picks of an IDP draft. His quarterback, I'm waiting for the last picks, and guys like Witherspoon are always first. Cooper was one of them that was going very high. Whoever's opposite of Sauce, Gardner, Riley Balls goes high too. So he's just overlooked all the time, and I can just pick him later. That's the biggest reason.
All righty. So then now, also with the Falcons, talking about their safety position, Jesse Bates did not play. So Jordan Fuller and Xavier Watts, who've been competing to play next to Bates, started. Fuller left the game first. Watts continued to play into the second half, which would imply Jordan Fuller's ahead of Watts. Do you have enough confidence in Jordan Fuller, who, and you're, for those that are just listening and not watching, Sean just shook his head no before he even finished the question. So tell us why you're not going after Jordan Fuller, Sean.
Yeah, just his past production in ideal scenarios. Last year with Carolina, he couldn't pull it off. Had to split with Nick Scott and all that. So uh, I'm treating this like he's probably going to start the season, but I doubt he finishes the season as the starter. Xavier Watts is going to take over at some point, guaranteed.
Guaranteed. So they're clearly going with the veteran, to let Watts learn. But I don't disagree with you that Watts takes over at some point. Even if Fuller is starting and playing 95% of the snaps,
No, I don't
not
feel like he's going to give me the production to match the snap percentage. I'm looking elsewhere.
I'm right with you on that. And you brought up Nick Scott's name, so let's go from the Falcons to the Panthers in that same division. Panthers, Trevin Morrigan, once again, Nick Scott started for the Panthers. So Damani Richardson, who had kind of taken over that starting safety role late in the year, same defensive coordinator, by the way, he went in as the number 3 safety. Lathan Ransom, the rookie out of Ohio State, was the number 4 safety to come into the game. Are we putting our trust in Nick Scott?
No.
I can't believe I asked that. I asked that question with a straight face without even laughing, but okay, I couldn't
Oof.
hold it anymore. We're
Right.
not trusting Nick Scott, folks. This is a short discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're taking Morig and we're ignoring the rest. I will say I've seen Richardson drafted a lot in a lot of these leagues, and I'm not really sure why because it was never really said he was the guy or why you would even take him. I don't know. Murray's the
Now,
guy here.
if I would have gone to Vegas and placed a bet, Sean, and next to Morig, who would start in what order, my bet would have been Richardson first, Ransom second, and Nick Scott a distant third.
Yeah,
And the
we all
fact is,
forgot Nick Scott existed.
yeah, I mean, well, he basically was benched last year. I mean, he,
Yeah,
and he got hurt and he came back and they didn't put him in and they left Richardson in, and so there was no reason to think it wouldn't be something along those lines with Ransom maybe over time, maybe displacing
right.
Richardson. But boy, this has certainly come out of left field. So for those of you that have been picking Richardson or gambling on Ransom, it could be quite a while before those guys hit the line. I just don't think Nick Scott will hold it all year. Uh, I think the Panthers. I think it's being way overblown. The end of Bryce Young's year last year. Yes, he had a lot of touchdowns, but if you look at his yards throwing per game and stuff, other than one game or maybe 2 of the last 5, it wasn't that great. And Ted McMillan, I don't have a ton of confidence in. Everybody showed his touchdown from week 1. Okay, I'm going on an offensive tangent for a second. They showed his touchdown catch, or no, not his touchdown catch, his big catch down the sideline, but they didn't show. And I watched the highlight. I mean, I watched the game that he did an in cut on the play before Jaker Coker caught the touchdown pass after Leggett got thrown out, and he didn't turn his head, and the ball went zipping right by him. There was another one that he didn't create any separation down the sideline, and he was easily knocked away. I'm not as big a McMillan fan as and we see some of these highlights like, oh wow, that was great, but then you don't get the whole picture and all. So sorry for that offensive tangent. I think the Panthers are going to struggle. And the only reason I bring that up from an IDP perspective, I think at some point that means if they're struggling, Nick Scott does go to the bench, and we see either Richardson and or Ransom coming in there. Okay, moving on to the
I'll
Bucks.
I'll
Oh, go
throw
ahead.
in several of those last games went into overtime, so stats were padded to an extent as well. So I think 4 of the last 7 or 8 games were overtime, and 2 of the last 3 for sure went into overtime. So again, those stats are skewed.
Yep. So now moving to the Bucks real quick. Some really good news. We were hoping Tyke Smith would get that starting safety role next to Winfield, and that is the way it looks like it is playing out. And he played um, 2/3 of his snaps in the box or the slot, which was great. And he only played 33% at free safety. Now, I did watch him get being flat-footed and watch Roman Wilson just blow by him with Jamel Dean also chasing. And then, and by the way, Jamel Dean on that one series, he got burned on that play. He got burned on the touchdown. There was 3 plays on that series that he got burned. It was the pick on Jamel Dean. So for those of you maybe think about Jamel Dean because of some of his past IDP stuff, I don't know if he's going to hold on to the starting job all year. I think it's going to be McCullum on one side and Benjamin Morrison, the second rounder out of Notre Dame, eventually replacing him. Okay, that aside, great news on Tyke Smith. Jacob Parrish appears to be the starting slot, so I'm going to get a pass defense as well. Jacob Parrish, we talk about cornerbacks and slot. Once again, make sure it's against the right team that plays a lot of 3 wides and so forth. When Jacob Parrish is like that, just like Tyke Smith when he was active in that role last year for the Bucks, was productive when he wasn't hurt as well. Jacob Parrish could be very productive, a cornerback to keep an eye on. Christian Izien, last thing, appears to be the number 3 safety. And if I was a betting person, if Parrish were to get hurt, Izien would move to that slot spot and they would leave Tyke at safety. I think they really want to make a safety out of Tyke. Sean, your thoughts on what I just talked about on the Bucks?
Yeah, Uzian is the Swiss Army knife of the defensive backfield there. So wherever the injury occurs, I'm looking at him to be plugged in safety or slot, not so much outside corner, but yeah, anything in the middle there. He's the next guy up for sure.
All right. So another one of these disappointments.
This one's wild.
Seahawks, Nicky Manwari. So he was on the field to start the game, but he only played about 60% of the snaps. And in the first snap, he was like in a third linebacker type of role. He moved to the slot in a 3 wide situation. But then in that same first drive, he went out the game and Devin Witherspoon moved from the outside cornerback to the slot position. Now, once again, this is a PFF stat, so shout out to PFF. Witherspoon played 100% of the snaps when he was in the game, 60% on the outside, 40% in the slot, which is down almost 10% from how much the amount of slot snaps he played last year. Now, granted, one preseason game, limited sample, only a couple drives, whatever, but that has a risk if he's playing a little bit more outside and Manwari gets some of those slot snaps to really impact Devin Witherspoon. And the Manwari only played 60% of the snaps in total. Similar situation on the second drive as well. And I'll mention that Julian Love and Kobe Bryant both played 100% of the snaps at safety. So, given that, I believe Nicky Manwari is getting overdrafted.
Yep.
And maybe even Devin Witherspoon, Sean.
Absolutely. This just showed us that Witherspoon is not the cornerback 1 anymore if he's going to be spending 2/3 of the game outside. And not, I know this was just one preseason game, but this backs up a lot of what we've heard about going on in practice, where Evan Worry was coming into the slot, into that linebacker position. The other 2 were staying in the regular roles, Love and Bryant. And we didn't really know how this was working out with Witherspoon as far as his alignment. Was he taking over slot or moving outside, or what was going on there? So this is disturbing. It makes both of them. I'm not taking either one. Is actually where I'm going to go with that. I'm not taking Witherspoon. He's going to be too high cost wise, and Evan Worry is not going to get enough playing time without an injury to justify drafting him in a redraft.
Now, this is where Ricky is a little bit sneaky. And people might have been wondering, why did Ricky bring up Patrick O'Connell as the backup for Tyrese Knight? And when he's talking about nobody's going to draft him anyway, and we wouldn't recommend him and stuff. And you agree with me on that. It's because when we got to Manwari, I wanted to bring up the fact that He did not go into that Tyrese Knight role. That's the key point of that, folks.
Right.
So if for those that tuned out after the linebackers, they're missing this key point. But for those of y'all that hung in with us, you have that key point that Iman Wara didn't go in for Tyrese Knight, which it would have been a perfect opportunity, particularly in the preseason, to see how he could do in that role, and they didn't even come close to putting him there. So Iman Wari, Witherspoon, they're both being drafted higher than we should draft them at this point in time. Look, things can change over the season, we get it, but based all indications are they're probably getting a little bit overdrafted right now.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up the DBs with the 49ers here. Jason Pinnock was out with injury. Of course, Malik Mustafa's on IR and won't be back till roughly mid-season. Jair Brown and Richie Grant and Pinnock had been getting a lot of the rotation with the first team. Marquise Siegel started working his way in. And guess who started next to Jair Brown with Pinnock out? It wasn't Richie Grant. It wasn't Mustafa who's hurt. It was Marquise Siegel, the rookie draft pick. And he made a very nice open field tackle that I saw. They seem to be very pleased with how he's doing. And they're still not sold on Jair Brown, even though Jair Brown was a much higher draft pick, in previous years. So right now, if the season were starting, I think it's going to be Jason Pinnock and Marcus Siegel starting back there.
I really don't know. This is one of those situations I'm avoiding altogether. I don't like Pinnock. I just don't feel like he's going to do enough. I feel like he's probably the deep guy.
He is
Don't
going to
know
be
it.
the deep guy.
Okay.
That's what they've been talking about.
Yeah, I was thinking that's what he was in New York. He was one of the deep guy. And Belton, I think, came up to be the box safety. So we've seen Brown, even when he had a heavy snap count, not produce well enough. Uh, so if Siegel does get the starts, he might be the one I take a shot at. But I'm
Yeah.
going to have to wait and see that guaranteed he's the starter.
Yeah, I'm not drafting him right now, but he is definitely on my watch list. And if he gets that starting role, at least until Mustafa's back, I'm he could have some value, but something definitely to watch. Okay, so that concludes our defensive backs. We just have a few defensive line notes. Cam Hayward was the first one wanted to bring up. He actually here on Tuesday actually suited up in practice today. So he wants more money. He feels like he's underpaid, and he said he might miss some games. And then lo and behold, he practiced. So one of two things: either one is because he's a team captain, blah blah blah. He decided that he needed to be out there, or two, the negotiations are happening behind the scenes, and he's not talking about it because negotiations are happening, and they're starting to get in the ballpark. He felt good enough to get out there. Either way, he's practicing, and that's good news for a defensive tackle. Sean, even at his age, you drafted him as a defensive tackle one.
As at the lower end of the ones, yeah. Yeah, I'm still taking that shot.
I am too. By the way, I don't know if you saw the Derek Harmon sack, the rookie.
Did
Um,
see that. Yes.
yeah, so Derek Harmon, folks, defensive tackle required leagues, not necessarily this year, but someone for the future. Definitely get him on your dynasty teams.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Dynasty for sure. If you play a two defensive tackle league, I might take a shot on him there too. Just might do it.
yeah. Now, Tyree Wilson didn't start, but he got a lot of playing time in the edge and also with some interior rushes. He just looked much better. And so I'm not saying to draft him now. I just wanted to call out for folks that just keep an eye on what happens there with the Raiders and that defensive line. Okay. On the Packers, Lucas Van Ness. What's your take on this, Sean? They put him into the starting lineup right away when this year, as he goes into year three. Uh, his predecessor, Kingsley Enig-Barry, got moved to the second team right away. They just decided it's time to put it to Lucas Van Ness, and he's been getting a lot of positive vibes out of camp in terms of edge position players. Where do you have Lucas Van Ness with all this positive vibes now? Is he a linebacker 3? Or you're not even drafting him yet? Edge 3. Is he edge 4? Where
He's
you want to wait and see? What are your thoughts on Van Ness?
he's currently undrafted, and as far as that goes, Rashawn Gary has dropped so far. Uh, these guys were like uh, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans a couple years ago when Baker Mayfield took over. There, it's like they had the plague. Nobody wanted them. And both these guys are being treated that way. The problem with Van Ness coming out was he never started. He was always a boomer bust, and that's
He was a toolsy kind of guy that needed to be developed.
yeah, and that's we're year 3 now. So it takes time. He very well could be a big breakout this year if he does get that full start and he can keep that high motor for an entire game week after week after week. Yeah, I'm willing to take a shot on him late in the draft.
Yep, I am too. And once again, someone you can cut bait after a couple of weeks by
Yeah,
drafting him that late. But I'm trying to think of some names that are going late at the edge position that I might take him off.
Joseph Osai is one that keeps going above Lucas Van Ness.
Yeah, that's a great one where I'm absolutely picking Van Ness over Osai. Not even a question on that one. I'm picking him over some of the rookies like Shamar Stewart or Mikael Williams that I'm seeing going in some of these drafts as well. So um, Van Ness, somebody to watch. The only other edge person I want to mention is Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker didn't play, he sat out again today from an injury perspective. He needed development. He's not getting that development. Stay away from Jalen Walker is Ricky's recommendation, Sean.
That's actually going to come up here in a little bit. Yeah, potential bust.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll say this, not to cut you off, but just in some drafts today, I'm still seeing him drafted over Jonathan Cooper, Nolan Smith, Trayvon Walker, Yaya Diaby, guys
oh,
like that.
that is
He's
absolutely
going that
crazy.
high. Like, that wasn't one draft. That was multiple drafts. These are the constant names I'm seeing after. Yeah. So
Yeah. So folks, don't get caught up in the rookie fever.
yeah, it's bad
Don't
right
do
now.
it. Yeah, that's a great example. It is out of control. So you won't be the cool kid that when, somebody else picks Jalen Walker and they say, "Oh, great pick." And then you pick what was one of those names you just mentioned?
Jonathan Cooper was one
And
I
you pick
see going
Jonathan
over a
Cooper and
lot.
nobody says anything. And you're like, just sit there and smile and be happy.
Yeah,
Like, I got a freaking steal and they pick someone who they're going to be putting on waivers in a few weeks. Just
yeah.
smile and
Take
enjoy it.
smile
You're
with your 10-11 sacks from Jonathan
abs-
Cooper.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so that's we just had a few on the defensive line we want to talk about. Now we want to move into our final divisional previews, NFC South and NFC West. And as we've been doing in all these weeks, uh, uh, sorry, folks, I'm trying to get my mouse here. Here we go. We've been talking about the MVPs, which we've been calling the crown jewels, breakouts, lemons, return to relevance, who's going to come back from injuries or maybe not playing as well. I've got an interesting one for y'all when we get to the NFC West on that one. Our sleepers and then our folks that pick up for dynasty but don't expect much from this year. Okay, or maybe as much as you might have originally thought. So with that, then let's go ahead and move to the NFC South. And because we've been going at an hour and 45 minutes, we're not going to talk about all of these. And for those that are listening, and since there's only 6, I'm going to read through them. So first, and then we'll talk about just a few of these. So MVP for the NFC South, Sean and I both agreed on Caden Ellis. Breakout star, Sean went with Servasia Dennis, who is one of the folks on my list. I went with Yaya Diaby, also from the Bucks, from an edge perspective. On the bust perspective, we both agreed that name we just talked about, Jalen Walker. We both had him. On the return to relevance, we both had Derek Brown for the Panthers. On the hidden gems, our sleepers, Sean went with Chase Young, who I had moving into the top 24 when we did our top 24 show, several weeks back. Those were a great series, by the way. You should go check those out. And I went with Christian Roseboom. And then Sean cheated on the future investment one. He went with both Xavier Watts and Jonas Sanker from a dynasty perspective, who more productivity in the future, maybe late this year, but certainly not for a full year. And I went with James Pierce. So we're going to talk about a few of these. Sean, let's start with Servasia Dennis from a breakout perspective. Why do you think he's going to break out this year?
Yeah, he's got the number 2 linebacker spot wrapped up in my eyes with Tampa Bay there. We've seen what Levante David can do for a lot of people's careers at that LB2 spot. Devin White's one of them. Uh, Levante David does so much that he allows that second guy to kind of be free and just go make plays. And I think Dennis is going to light it up this year. And I hope this works out better than my KJ Britt pick last year. I'm trying it one more time. If it doesn't work this year, I'm picking a new team.
The difference in this case is Britt was going to be more the run stopper potentially,
Mhm.
and Dennis was going to be more the passing down guy. And
And
now
that's
they
how they
have
rotated last year.
exactly right. And there were some injuries and all for both of them as
Yeah.
well that happened. But then this year, Servasi Dennis is starting, and also that means he's going to have that run, that in for those running downs. And we already know they were playing him in those passing downs,
Yeah.
and he should be playing 95% or so of the snaps. So I'm right there with you. I love Servasi Dennis as a great steal and all. Um, on Derek Brown, let's go to Derek Brown. And Derek Brown's not going to get you a bunch of sacks, but what will he get you a lot of, Sean?
Oh, yeah. This is all about the tackles. And he can sure get a lot of them. I think he had 98 just 2 years ago, or 100. I can't remember. He was just under 100 or right over it. But yeah, the injury last year caused him to miss the entire season. He's at a full year to come back. He's ready to go. Still might be slow out the gate. I'm willing to hold on to him and let him work through some of that rust and get ready. I think he played a whole 3 snaps last week, and they said they about had to fight him to get him off the field. So he's
And
ready.
he got a tackle on that.
Yeah.
So while he was in there, so I hadn't seen all the numbers yet when I was kind of looking at the Panthers Texans game, and then Derek Brown in on the tackle kind of thing was like he's back and he's
Yeah.
starting, and that's great news. And particularly in tackle heavy leagues, he has a chance to be the number one defensive tackle in defensive tackle required leagues as
And
well.
he's being drafted in about the 15 to 20 range right now at defensive tackle. Completely overlooked, I guess, because of the injuries. So he's out
Yeah,
there.
absolute steal at that point. Once again, a lot of these names we've given y'all, you don't have to draft them really early, but check out where the ADP is and look around, round and a half ahead of that, and then grab them there. And you're still getting incredible steal, incredible value by doing it that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
because well, one thing to point out is a lot, even though we have our own rankings, a lot of people still use the sites rankings. So if you're
Yep.
on MFL, he's getting overlooked. If you're on Sleeper, he's up a little higher, but he's still being looked at as, oh, yeah, nobody remembers what he did last year because he was injured. So they go down to the next name they recognize. So use your site's ADP to your advantage for your opponents. Because a lot of them are just looking at that and making picks based on that. So going off their own true ranking system. So,
Exactly. And so now moving to the sleepers, I went with Christian Roseboom. Is it a sexy pick? Absolutely not. Um, is he going to have the chance to be extremely productive playing that old Josie Jewell role in Carolina? And he tends not to get hurt like Josie Jewell does. Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about the Panthers' run defense. I mean, Nick Chubb, 5 carries for 25 yards, and most of the reports about Chubb were that he looked slower and all that kind of stuff. And he started the game, and then Woody Marks gashed him, and so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Christian Roseboom. And once again, I think the Panthers are overrated. So I think if you look at Josie Jewell, who on a points per game basis in most leagues, once again he missed some games because of the injury, finished as a top 12 linebacker in most scoring leagues on a points per game basis. Christian Roseboom, not sexy, undrafted free agent. I believe he was undrafted, or if he was drafted, it was really low, whatever. There's huge opportunity that you can get once again, linebacker two production as a linebacker four draftee.
yeah, great pickup. I considered putting him here too. I just went with Chase Young. Just I wanted you to feel good about one of the Saints players.
And I did have Chase Young going in my top 24, as I mentioned. That was one of my surprise things that I think he's in the new scheme. He's going to move to the top 24. So I'm right there with you in terms of your selection there of him. And just in the interest of time, um, the two safeties, Watts, we talked about already. Jonas Sanker, who had a really good game in this preseason game against the Jags, but he's clearly behind Blackman. He's clearly behind Justin Reed. As a side note, Julian Blackman went 3 practices in a row with an interception. And that includes against the Rams in that joint practice they had. I think it was the Rams, yes. So it wasn't just against Shuck and Rattler, which you would have said big deal. It's Shuck and Rattler kind of thing. Okay. And boy, I'm dogging my Saints today. I love my
Oh
Saints though.
man, yeah, it
And,
shows. Yeah.
and James Pierce, although he's causing fights with his teammates on a regular basis during training camp and all, has looked really good. Now he's given up some rush containment and things along those lines, but I think Pierce is going to have a bright future from an edge perspective as he puts on a little bit more weight, muscle, and mass. I think he's someone that can have 8 sacks, maybe not necessarily this year, but as we move forward.
Yeah.
Moving on to the NFC West. And so, once again, I'll read through all of these for those that are only listening, and then we'll talk about a few of these. For our crown jewels, Sean went with Buda Baker, the #1 safety from last year. I went with Ernest Jones. For breakout star, I love Sean's pick of D Winters. I went with Jared Verse. Some people might think that's cheating. I don't think it was. From a bust perspective, Sean Wood, Devin Witherspoon, who we talked about a little bit ago. I went with a combination of Quentin Lake and Leonard Williams. Since he put 2 on the previous one, I went back and added in Leonard Williams on this one. Return to relevance, Sean put Bryce Huff, which I bet you he struggled to come up with but we haven't talked about this. I put not applicable. I couldn't put anybody in this division that I felt good about from a
Call
return to
me
relevance
a
perspective.
cheater.
I almost put Demarcus Lawrence in that spot because he missed most of the season
I
with injury.
considered it. Yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah, but
that's
exactly.
just, yeah.
From a sleeper perspective, Josh Sweat, Nate Landman. I went. Sean went with Sweat. I went with Landman, and then we both have Imanwari as our pick for future investment dynasty because, as we talked about earlier, we're worried about his snap count for this year. So let's talk about a few of these, and let's go to the breakout stars. I'll defend myself in a second, but you go ahead and start with D Winters and why you think he's going to be a breakout star this year.
Yeah, he's got the #2 spot wrapped up next to Fred Warner. Again, Fred Warner's made normal guys look good. He made Dre Greenlaw look good when he was there. Aziz Al Shair looked real good next to Fred Warner. So having that elite veteran linebacker 1 on your team allows the second guy to go do, just see ball, go get ball, and let him worry about, calling the plays and everything else. So he has the freedom, and we've seen him run around in preseason. He looks fantastic. I'm excited because he's practically free in these in these leagues, and you're getting a guy that you could jump up to LB2 production at LB5, 6. I mean, he's practically free right now.
Absolutely agree. Now let me defend my Jared Verse as a breakout. Jared Verse didn't exactly have a lot of sacks last year. He had a
Right.
ton of pressures, but they didn't translate to sacks. So that's part one in terms of I think those sack numbers will be significantly higher this year. I think he'll be closer to the 10 range to the versus I think it was the 4.5 that he had this past year. Number one. Number two is I'm predicting that when we're talking about edge players next year, and we're talking about Boza, and we're talking about Crosby, and we're talking about Watt, and we're talking about Parsons, Jared Verse will be in that discussion with those guys. That's how much I think he's going to leap in terms of the sack production as well as increased tackle production and so forth. And by the way, as a side note, if you haven't heard his story about going to do a workout with Aaron Donald, try and find it on Google and that interview and the information about it. It is hysterical about how Aaron Donald tortured him during that workout. And when you hear it, you realize why Aaron Donald was such a freaking beast when he was on the field. Okay. We talked about Witherspoon from a bust perspective. Quentin Lake, there was talk earlier in training camp that they were potentially looking to move him to a more traditional safety role. So that's number one that's concerning. Then the Rams aren't playing a lot of these starters in preseason games, so we don't know if that's really going to be the case or are they going to use them as they did last year. Part two is if you look at his scoring in the second half of the year versus the first half of the year, there was a tremendous drop off. And look, we're not talking about Quentin Lake as someone who was a first or second round draft pick, anything along those lines. I believe he was a sixth rounder out of UCLA, if I'm remembering correctly. So he's not necessarily a stud, and there's a lot of turnover. And if you listen to our top 24 shows, and there's a high turnover top 24 at the safety and cornerback spots, I expect Quentin Lake to fall out of that. whether it be usage, whether it be productivity and efficiency. I just don't see it. And on Leonard Williams, in all his years, he's only had 2 years where he has had double-digit sacks. Last year happened to be one of them. The probability of that repeating is pretty low, given he's been in the league. I think this is going to his 10th year. So don't draft last year's best team. Draft this year's. Don't get too high on Leonard Williams. You went with Bryce Huff and return to relevance. I cheated with not applicable. Make your case for Bryce Huff, and I bet you didn't feel good though. But you wanted to put somebody into that on the chart, right, Sean?
He was the only person I picked out of that whole division that would fit in that spot. And that's because of Robert Saleh going back to the 49ers. And that's where when Bryce Huff had his bit of a breakout season, his best years were under Robert Saleh in the Jets. So, yeah, he went to the Eagles last year, did nothing, did not fit that scheme with Vic Fangio, and just faded into oblivion. Well, this year he's, like I said, back with Salah, and with the unknowns with the rest of that team at edge, he's at least going to get some rotation in there. I don't think he's going to be the full blown starter, but he'll get enough to get 7 sacks, something like that. So it's
Before Mikael Williams was hurt, there was the discussion. Of course, Yetur Gross-Matos is also still on PUP right now.
yeah,
They expect him to come off soon, hopefully. But it was Mikael Williams was playing on the edge, but they were moving him on the inside for pass rush, and the discussion was, particularly then after the Huff trade, you have Huff and Bosa rushing from the inside, and Gross-Matos and Mikael Williams rushing from the inside. So there is a possibility for Huff to get back to that 8 sack range, but he hasn't given much tackles. We
right.
haven't really seen much of that. So if it's a sack-heavy league with heavy scoring sacks and not so much of tackles, Huff's someone to consider. But otherwise, I'm with you. That's why I went with not applicable, because I wanted to make the point that there really wasn't much from a return to relevance opportunity in this division, which we haven't had for that problem with any of the other divisions that we went through, just this last one.
Right.
And I'll lastly talk about Nate Landman real quick, folks. Almost everything I said about Roseboom, change maybe the teams and a couple of player names and so forth, but it's basically the same story. You could get Nate Landman, an unsexy pick, as a linebacker 4, giving you linebacker 2 production out of the Rams. We've seen Ernest Jones do it. We saw Roseboom do it with the Rams, and when Reeder was in that role, we're talking about some not necessarily studs with some of those latter names I talked about, getting those kind of results. So that completes our division previews. Hopefully we gave you some great information on the IDP notes and all. But now I want to tell you about our next show, folks. So our next show next week, we're going to talk about week 3 preseason games. Now, I'm not expecting a lot of teams to play a lot of starters, so I don't think we'll have nearly as much of the notes, but what we do have will probably be pretty freaking juicy. So, and even by who doesn't play, we may be able to tell a lot. So you want to tune in for that. Also, Ricky's going to bring in his rankings into the show for the 5 positions on defense using true positions: D tackle, edge, your inside linebackers, cornerback, and safety. And we're going to have Sean and hopefully Johnny Freaking Fantasy, if we can coordinate all this, will be able to join us as well. And we're going to have them shoot holes in my tiers on each of those. Some of those, who they like, who they don't like, who they think I've overrated, who I think I have underrated. So they're pretty much going to trash me for the most part, I have a feeling. But, so we're going to try and film that show next Friday and then release it on Saturday morning. That is our goal. So that one will be a little bit further out. So if you're looking for the show, I want you to be aware of that. But hopefully you can watch that and listen to it in time as you start heading into your drafts on the Saturday, Sunday, Mondays, or maybe into the week as we get closer to the regular season. So that is our goal. And we're also going to do it later because cuts are due on Sunday at 3 o'clock. And then there's injured reserve position that happens, and there's waiver wire that happens, and there's more adjustments to the 53 that happens. And so we're going to let all of that kind of play out, then and gather all our information, and then give it to you, like I said, with a plan to record it on that Friday night here. And once again, today is August 19th. Y'all can check the calendar and figure out what that is. I think that's the 30th, if I remember correctly. All right, so that'll be our next show. All right. Also, mark your calendars. Sunday, September 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time. Sean and I will be back with the Start Sit Show. We had so much great engagement from the people that were part of the IDP Advice Weekly show that was going on last year. As the season progressed, we kicked that off around week 4 or 5, and had those people come to the Start Sit show. We had a lot of other people. We do IDP, a lot of IDP Start Sit, a lot of questions on that, but we also do offense. And we answer a bunch of questions in that 1 hour. And hopefully Michael Sicoli, who is one of our co-hosts as well, Michael might not be able to join us every week because of his job as a sports reporter that he has, but he's going to try and join us for a bunch of those as well. And if not Michael, we may get a third wheel with us as well to join us when Michael can't. So we had a lot of fun with those shows, and we gave a lot of great advice because a lot of people would come back next week. I don't recall anybody coming back and saying y'all just gave terrible advice. We might have picked the wrong guy, but we had good logic behind it in some cases. So come to our Start Sit show. And as the season progresses, we'll have that weekly IDP Advice show where we'll be talking about key surprises in snap counts that we saw, in injuries, in positional, where people were being lined up on the field from a position perspective, box versus slot, all that kind of stuff. Waiver implications, all that. We'll be talking about that during the season. You're going to want to come in and watch those shows because that's going to really help you with your waivers. It's going to help you with your start sits. It's going to help you with trades for dynasty. Got a lot of tremendous feedback on that show last year. So get ready for those shows as well. Okay. And as I talked about at the beginning of the show, if you have any questions, comments, what you like, what you don't like, the fact that we went 2 hours and 6 minutes so far, hopefully it was great information. It was worth it. And you got to listen to it all. Stick it into the comments. Let us know what you liked and did. Okay. If you have questions about somebody we talked about it that we did talk about, let us know in there. Shout out to Kevin Hutchison, John Carlos, Joe, Michael King, Philip V, who spells Philip correctly with one L, MT, and someone called You Are Not Here. All those guys who interacted with us on the last week's show on the YouTube channel was great. Sean, anything in terms of closing today's show?
These have been a lot of fun. I appreciate doing all these shows with you, Ricky.
It's been great, Sean.
Make sure to catch his in-season material. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of who to start, who not to start, who not to chase. You know, the biggest. This guy played, but is it actually fortune or is it fake? So, yeah, Ricky's going to break all that down throughout the season. Great information there. Definitely catch it.
Thank you, Sean. And, we may have Sean guest on one or two of those. And in fact, I'm becoming a grandfather, folks, in mid-October. And so if that happens, I may ask my man Sean, if depending on the situation, to step in and help me out in one of those weeks. So just as FYI, if you like this show, and I hope you did, if you stuck around this long, you must have, give it a thumbs up on this YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and do so. Give me a follow at RickyRod66 and Sean at 8386 on X. You can catch this one and many other shows on replay that you missed. And with that, we'll see you in about a week and a half, roughly. Okay? On behalf of Sean Teague, this is Ricky Rodriguez saying we wish you, your family, your friends great health and happiness. Be kind to one another. We're out of here, and we'll catch you next time, like I said, about a week and a half. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.